The assassination of Julius Caesar. What if the most powerful man in the world walked calmly into a room where everyone already knew he was going to die? What if his murder was not an act of chaos, but a carefully rehearsed political ritual? And what if the men who plunged their blades into Julius Caesar truly believed they were not committing a crime, but saving the Roman Republic? Today, we reconstruct the final day of Julius Caesar, March 1544 BC, not as legend, not as theater, but as history, step by step, face by face, decision by decision. And by the end of this reconstruction, one question will remain unavoidable. Was Caesar killed because he wanted to be king, or because Rome could no longer survive without one? Act I. The problem, a republic in name only. For nearly a century, the Roman Republic had been locked in an endless cycle of internal violence. Political rivals were no longer debated, they were eliminated. Armies no longer defended borders, they marched on Rome itself. The old republican balance of power, once carefully maintained between Senate, magistrates and assemblies, had been shattered beyond repair. Out of this chaos emerged a single figure who dominated Roman life completely. Caesar was not merely a successful general, he was the most successful Roman commander who had ever lived. His conquest of Gaul had brought unimaginable wealth into Rome and transformed him into a living legend. His civil war against Pompey had ended with Caesar as the undisputed master of the Roman world. But power in Rome was supposed to be shared, temporary, and limited. In early 44 BC, the Senate granted him the title Dictator perpetuo, or dictator for life. Officially, this was still a republican office. In reality, it meant there would be no elections that could remove him, no colleagues to balance him, and no expiration date on his authority. Rome had not seen a concentration of power like this since the Age of Kings. This fear was not abstract, it was cultural memory. Rome defined itself by the overthrow of monarchy. The very word rex king was political poison. To accuse a man of wanting kingship was to accuse him of treason against Rome's identity itself. And yet, Caesar began to look dangerously close to one. He sat above senators at public meetings. His image appeared on coins while he was still alive. The month of July was renamed in his honor. Priests swore oaths to his genius. During the festival of Lupercalia, Mark Antony publicly offered Caesar a diadem, a symbol unmistakably associated with kingship. Caesar refused it once, twice. The crowd applauded, but the question lingered in the minds of Rome's elite: was this refusal genuine or merely delayed? Because here lies the first great uncertainty of Caesar's death. Was Caesar truly planning to become king, or was Rome projecting its terror onto a man who had already gone too far to be controlled? That question haunted the Senate. The men who decided Caesar must die were not outsiders. They were not revolutionaries. They were the Roman elite itself. At the center stood Marcus Junius, Brutus. His ancestor Lucius Junius Brutus was remembered as the founder of the Republic, the man who had driven out Rome's last king. That legacy weighed heavily on him. Philosophically trained, publicly austere, Brutus saw himself as a guardian of republican liberty. Beside him stood Gaius Cassius Longinus, a hardened soldier and experienced commander. Cassius was sharper, more suspicious, and far less idealistic than Brutus. Where Brutus saw principles, Cassius saw power. And then there was Decimus Junius Brutus, one of Caesar's most trusted generals, a man who owed his career, his wealth, and his survival to Caesar himself. Why would men who benefited from Caesar's rule decide to murder him? The answer lies in a dangerous mixture of fear, ideology, personal grievance, and something uniquely Roman: the belief that killing one man could restore an entire political system. The conspirators convinced themselves that Caesar was not the Republic's protector, but its executioner. If he lived, the Republic would die. If he died, Rome could be free again. At least, that was the theory. Caesar knew he was unpopular among some senators. He knew there were whispers, he knew there were threats. But Caesar believed himself safe. He had defeated his enemies and then forgiven them. He believed mercy disarmed hatred. He believed that men who owed him their lives would never raise a hand against him. This was his greatest mistake. A soothsayer famously warned him to beware the Ides of March. Anonymous notes were pressed into his hands, never read. His wife Calpurnia dreamed of his body bleeding while Romans washed their hands in his blood. On the morning of March 15, she begged him not to leave the house. For a moment, Caesar agreed. He mocked the idea that Caesar, master of Rome, would hide from dreams and rumors. He warned that the Senate might interpret absence as weakness or, worse, ambition. Caesar changed his mind. Act 2. The agitation. The Ides of March. The Senate was not meeting in its usual location. The Curia was under renovation. Instead, the session was held in the theater of Pompey, a cruel irony, as Pompey had once been Caesar's greatest rival. As Caesar entered, the conspirators surrounded him. Some had barely slept, no guards. One senator would present a petition, distracting Caesar. Others would crowd close, as was customary. At first, Caesar was merely annoyed. It was clumsy, poorly aimed. The blade struck his shoulder. For a split second, Caesar did not understand what was happening. Then the knives came all at once. Senators screamed. Caesar attempted to rise, but the crowd pressed in. He was stabbed again and again. According to ancient sources, Caesar fought back, grabbing one attacker, trying to defend himself, until he saw Brutus. Whether Caesar truly spoke the famous words, Et tu, Root is uncertain. Ancient accounts differ. What is certain is this: when Caesar recognized Brutus among the attackers, he covered his face and accepted death. 23 stab wounds. The dictator for life collapsed at the base of Pompey's statue, bathing his former rival in blood. Act 3. The solution. The truth about Caesar's death. The conspirators believed they had saved the Republic. They were wrong. No army. Instead of celebrating them as liberators, the people of Rome were horrified. Caesar's funeral changed everything. Mark Antony's speech, carefully crafted, emotionally devastating, turned public opinion violently against the assassins. Caesar's bloodied body was displayed. His will revealed gifts to the people. The city erupted. Brutus and Cassius fled, then died by suicide after defeat. Decimus Brutus was hunted down and executed. The republic they sought to protect never returned. Instead, Caesar's adopted son Octavian, later Augustus, rose from the chaos, and Rome became what the conspirators feared most. Did Caesar want to be king? What history shows us is something far more important. Caesar did not destroy the republic. The republic had already destroyed itself. Caesar merely exposed the truth. Rome could no longer function as it once had. The men who killed him believed they were acting for liberty. In reality, they ensured its final death. And that is the ultimate tragedy of the Ides of March. But that his death changed nothing except to make Rome eternal in a form it could never escape.